Hello and welcome to the interview on France 24. Joining us from Strasbourg is the new President of the European Parliament, Jerzy Buzek. Thank you for being with us, Mr. President.
Good afternoon.
You were the center-right Prime Minister of Poland from 1997 to 2001, and you are now the first President of a leading EU institution coming from a former communist country. It's a bit of a challenge, isn't it?
Well, it's a great challenge. I feel it all the time. But we politicians must be prepared for such challenges.
What is the most challenging thing?
Everything. We are in very international surroundings. We are responsible for 500 million people in the European Union. Growing responsibility of European Parliament, especially after the Lisbon Treaty, which is probably will be accepted during next few months. So everything is very important.
Well, the election of a Central European leader at the head of the European Parliament is supposed to end the division between old and new member states in Europe, but there is still an ideological gap on issues such as free market or relation with the USA, right?
Well, maybe this gap is not as big as we think sometimes. It's a big gap from point of view of standard of living ordinary people. But generally, we have quite a good democracy and free market working. The gap, but is very important to fulfill the gap in our memory and everything what we are doing in the ordinary days. So such a signal from the side of the European Union, the European Parliament, that somebody from Central Eastern European countries is very, very important for our part of Europe.
Well, you are expected to focus on Europe's eastern neighbors, including Russia. What is the right policy towards Russia, towards Mr. Medvedev, knowing that Europe is very dependent on Russian oil and gas?
Well, I think our relations with Latin America, in Mediterranean region, our relations with the United States are very important as well. I would like to say that I would like to take care only about eastern part of Europe. But of course, we just start now Eastern Partnership. So it's very important to start everything what is necessary during this Swedish and next Spanish presidency. And our relations with Russia are of special importance. We are dependent on Russians' oil and gas. But we must know that Russians are dependent on us as well. So it is not only dependence in one direction. And we must also remember about human rights, rules of democracy, free market economy.
And you are going to remind everybody about human rights in Russia during your presidency of the EU Parliament?
It is not necessary to remind every time. We can hear from time to time something which is not usual in the European Union. We have, I think, different rules of democracy and also free market economy, human rights than in Russia. And we must, well, remember about that.
Well, you've set several priorities, by the way, from fighting climate change to improving Europe's energy security, supporting human rights, you just told us, tackling migration, as well as the demographic crisis. Don't you think it's a little too much?
We must do a lot of things during 2.5 years. What is really the most important, I would like to say, in September, during the plenary session in Strasbourg. It will be something like statement, more wide, about 20 minutes during parliamentary session. And then I will choose something which is the most important by my opinion. But of course, we should not forget anything what you mentioned, Madam.
You have a liberal background. How do you want to tackle the economic crisis? With more regulation and more national stimulus packages?
The balance is necessary. Always we are seeking balance between social problems and free market economy. So in this case, we must go in the same way.
Well, you want Mr. Barroso to be quickly re-elected by the European Parliament at the head of the Commission. Many newly elected MEPs criticize him as too much of a liberal. Is he the right man to face a major economic crisis?
Well, we'll see in September, because Mr. President Barroso will have meetings with political groups in the European Parliament, and he's preparing something like political credo, his personal political credo for the next 5 years. And then we can decide, and we will know what he really wants to do in the future.
But why do you support him so much? So far?
Because it is necessary to have President of the European Commission as quick as possible. People wait for quick decision in the European Union. They are aware of crisis, climate change, energy issue, as you said, Madam. So we must respond immediately. And we also need Lisbon Treaty. It's something rather for us politicians, because we know we will be much more effective in the European Union if we have Lisbon Treaty. So if we want to do really something important for our citizens, we need Lisbon Treaty.
And we need Mr. Barroso. You like him personally? Well, yes. You appreciate him?
Well, I appreciate him, but if we have a leader of the European Commission formally accepted, it would be much better, because from September he can start organizing concrete programs for the EU, also organizing the new Commission. And it takes time, so it's better to make it quicker than later.
Well, let's talk about enlargement. Iceland's parliament voted just today to authorize the government to begin accession talks with the European Union. When do you think it will take place? By 2013?
But it's difficult to say, because certain criteria must be fulfilled. And if we compare situation in Ireland, for example, much better than in Iceland, much better, it's of course because Ireland is today connected with the European Union. And if we think about situation in Balkan region, we see that Balkan countries, they are queuing for EU membership. And 10, 15 years, they were fighting each other. So it's much better situation. I think European Union should enlarge step by step. There are not big countries, so it will be easier. But I am saying once again, criteria must be fulfilled.
And especially for Turkey, knowing that French President Nicolas Sarkozy opposes strongly Turkey's full membership, what is your position on this specific country?
Turkey is not prepared for accession.
It's not. It will be one day?
Well, we don't know. Almost 50 years ago, we started negotiations, or we promised Turkey to be a member of the European Union, and it never happened. So criteria were not and are not fulfilled.
And it will. You wish it will. You wish it were, or it will be.
Well, it is difficult to say, because we had our enlargement 5 years ago, and as I said a few minutes ago, enlargement and integration is not the same. We need deep integration. We are also not ready for big enlargement now. And it takes time. I don't know how much, 15, 20, 25 years, but we must prepare ourselves for integration. So not so quickly.
You mentioned Ireland, of course, whose voter previously rejected the Lisbon Treaty, and they will hold another referendum on October the 2nd. What is your message to Irish voters?
Well, I'm prepared to go to Ireland and to give them maybe the same example as it was 7 years ago, because maybe you remember, Madame, they didn't agree on Nice Treaty as well in the first try. And when we could explain them that it is about enlargement, very important for the whole European Union, they said yes. So I think if we explain them that Lisbon Treaty is for European Union efficiency, they will say yes.
Very last question, what do you wish to achieve during your presidency?
And Madam, it's very difficult to say during a few seconds. I think we should wait until the 15th of September, because I would like to present my vision for the next 2.5 years in the special statement in the European Parliament, together with the discussion between members.
Thank you for having presented your vision to France 24 beforehand. Thank you so much, Mr. President. That's the end of the interview, but please stay with us for more news.